just put in our lunch order, so you can tell that the day is going along just swimmingly here as we're advancing through the rounds of Swiss. We've got 5 today, and we're heading into round 3, so just about to break the middle of the Swiss rounds.
We absolutely are. And, you know, I will say, we picked these names before looking at the teams, and I got so much joy right now because I'm looking at some of these teams. There's a very specific Pokemon that I haven't really seen it do anything this entire series, but I'm hoping that it makes a little appearance this game.
Well, there's going to be a couple of them as well. There's 2 Pokemon that I've been kind of looking at as I build teams and assess the current format. No one's been bold enough to bring them to regionals, which is where I usually get to look at these things. So being able to pivot around and get some of those, you know, maybe this is like the test bed, right? Like if it works well, you know, in this one, then you're able to pivot it out and see, you know, how it goes at maybe a regional. Our next regional, of course, being in Hartford up on the East Coast. So you have to imagine that some of our players will be taking the trip. It's like 2.5 on the plane, I think, depending on how you do your route. So could be an interesting one.
So I'm going to go ahead and say what the teams are. So we have Matthew over here using Fluttermane, Gyarados, Amoonguss, Scizor, Iron Hands, and Chi-Yu. So that's much more of a kind of standard team. Scizor, I think, is actually a very interesting pick because obviously you can change your types. You're no longer 4 times weak to fire, and also as a side bonus, you can be immune to Will-O-Wisp, which are 2 of the best ways to shut down Scizor. Then as for Scott's team is Chin-Pao, Arcanine, Azumarill, Amoonguss, Slitherwing, and Farigiraf. So I'm looking at like Scott's team. It's very out of the box. Like there's a few things like you see, like for example, like this Chin-Pao here as a focus sash, but also as substitute. So that's gonna be very interesting to see that in play.
Yeah, seems like an interesting mix. And I think for Matt, you know, what's kind of frustrating here is like Scizor's so good because it can just bullet punch down Fluttermanes, right? That's where you usually see it getting used, you know, particularly if they're the Fairy Terror as well and they can't even get away from it. But, you know, he does have the opportunity to maybe just try and go after something like that Chien-Pao, be able to hit it. Of course, the highlight for Scott's team is the Slitherwing, which on paper should be one of the best typings available in the game right now, right? You've got access to the fighting type, and with 4 very prominent dark types in there, being able to hit those super effectively with a close combat makes a lot of sense. But there's plenty of stuff that also doesn't appreciate close combats. I mean, if Wo-Chien was actually useful, you'd be hitting that 4 times. But like the Chien-Pao is going to be 4 times to, you know, fighting. So definitely has its uses. I'm just not sure how it fits. The Chi-Yu here is the ruinous Pokemon over on Matt's side. And that one is a tough matchup, right? Because you are looking at being able to cause problems that way. Of course, a couple of ways to deal with that. I know Terrestrialization has been a big thing for the Slitherwing. Being able to play around it. I know a lot of people have been leaning into something like the water type on Slitherwing. Just, you know, take away that fire weakness and really start causing problems that way. But, you know, there's also another option where you go aggressive. You go bug and see if you can do way more damage with a first impression.
No, so we go ahead and see from Matt's side of the field, we have a Gyarados and a Fluttermane against Scott's Farigiraf and an Arcanine. So Farigiraf does have Trick Room, so that's very notable. Obviously, it's typically a Trick Room setter. It's kind of interesting, though, is what I will say, though, is that Scott's team is very, very fast. So going with the Farigiraf mode, based on how the team is constructed, you can assume there's probably more of like the slower Pokemon in the back, such as that Azumarill, Amoonguss, or maybe that Slitherwing, as opposed to Chin-Pao potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing about Farigiraf that a lot of people forget is that Armor Tail ability, right? And a lot of teams now, you know, think of the Dragonite teams, you know, even the King Gambits to an extent with the Sucker Punch, are relying on that priority. So just being able to take that away and say you actually have to play like a more honest game and mess around with the speeds is certainly a little bit different. But we'll see how this one goes. I mean, Matt's got 2 very much meta Pokemon on the field right now, ready to go, ready to deal that damage. And seems to be very committed to that with the Terrestrialization on turn number 1. It is going to be the Fluttermane, and that Fluttermane will be going Fairy type, so these Dazzling Gleams and Moonblasts are going to be hurting a little bit.
And I also really like this because Fluttermane has had such a good position here. If you notice Matt's board, he led Fluttermane next to an Intimidator, which is obviously the Gyarados, so it shuts down the Arcanine for, you know, let's say it's Flare Blitz, not going to do a bunch of damage, presuming that it's physically defensive, which does not seem like it's very physically defensive, judging how it took over half from a -1 Flare Blitz. We do see the Taunt coming out onto the Farigiraf, so this is very interesting. Farigiraf decides to go for the Psyshock onto the Fluttermane, which it does. It'll actually be able to get the one-hit knockout, and in this great position Fluttermane was in is now suddenly it's out of the window. It's no longer an option. So you got off, you know, maybe 60%, 70% onto that Farigiraf. and maybe about 30% onto this Arcanine, which we are about to see leftovers on this Arcanine, so it's going to recover some of that back. In terms of value, yes, you got the taunt off from Matt, but you lost one of your biggest offensive threats into this team, so you have to kind of play pretty carefully.
Yeah, I think Matt's going to have to try and up the ante a little bit, but Chi-Yu, not a bad Pokemon to do it with. Beads of Ruin, making those knockouts very easy to get. And of course the Gyarados, you know, was kind of stretched a little bit there. Had to try and taunt that Frigiraf, make sure there wasn't going to be any Trick Room coming through. But, you know, that does mean that you're not waterfalling an Arcanine, which that obviously makes a lot of sense. So this could be a really rough turn. Frigiraf looking like something that's going to get caught, but this could just be Matt trying to get back in the game, just throw out big moves every single turn and pick up those knockouts where possible.
So something I do want to note is that, I mean, we just saw it, so it's not really a surprise. Matt actually decided to go for Heat Wave here, and I think that's, obviously there's a bit of a risk involved or you could miss it, but also I do kind of agree that Matt's behind, so you got to start rolling the dice. You know, you want to get ahead of this game because right now you're behind, so doing every single thing you can. So, you know, it's kind of like the risk versus reward analysis. Like, obviously a Dark Pulse could have came out onto the Frigiraf, knocked it out, and then you would have been at like a prime position. But as soon as Heat Wave does connect, it will do the exact same thing, and now you threaten offensive pressure into anything else that comes in. Nothing really wants to take this, barring the Azumarill. So this current board definitely invites an Azu to come in because obviously Chi-Yu does not want to take the Aqua Jet, and the Gyarados on the board right now, it's already used Intimidate, so nothing's really threatening an Azu from coming in here and just kind of going to town here.
Yeah, the Azumarill could cause a lot of problems. You know, it's going to be Fire-type, Water-type versus Fire-type, Water-type, right? But it's not going to be the Azumarill. It is going to be the reveal of the Slitherwing here. There he is, the guy himself. And this is the tricky one, right? It's against the Chi-Yu. I know what I'd try and do to deal with it, but you've got to see if Scott is going to be able to go into that, because this Chi-Yu as well, you know, does have the Choice Scarf on that side, right? It is very much in a tricky situation. So let's see if he can identify the threat. He's going to have to look down at the team sheet and see if he can get away with that one. But let's just see how much Slitherwing can do here.
So, okay, I have to say, switching into Iron Hands, that was very, very good. Because obviously, if I am the Slitherwing player, if I'm Scott, I'm looking at that Chi-Yu and I'm like, dang, that is a juicy first impression. You know, just get it off really quick, just get that quick knockout. Terra-Bug, just to ensure you get it, of course. But, you know, obviously, Iron Hands being fighting, it resists this. It does resist, right? I'm pretty sure, yeah. So let's see. Yeah,
you're making me doubt it now. Yeah, first impression into the Iron Hand.
Yeah, resist. Okay.
That's a big waste of the Terra there. Just not able to do that. And you know, for the Slitherwing to be able to play the way it wants for the rest of the game, it's going to have to pivot around, right? It's going to have to pivot out and wait for that Chi-Yu to be a little bit later. The Gyarados finally gets to waterfall this Arcanine. Unfortunately, there's just been, you know, a little bit too much going on in this game. You know, and this not able to land anything that it really needed. So the Gyarados, you know, now being burned, not able to deal with that Arcanine. So a little bit late on the waterfall here, certainly causing some problems.
So something I will say is that I think that Scott's Arcanine is doing a great job at kind of just disrupting everything, where it's just, you know, okay, like your Flutter Mane, let's get rid of that turn 1. Turn 2, I forgot exactly what it clicked, but oh yeah, just Will-O-Wisp. Turn 2, it just Will-O-Wisp in the Gyarados, and now obviously threaten another Will-O-Wisp onto this Iron Hands. So it's just like, you know, if I am Matt, I don't really feel comfortable taking up any of this. So no Will-O-Wisp actually coming out from the Arcanine. Instead, we see a Protect and Iron Hands. Let's see what it clicks. Goes Fake Out into the Arcanine, not wanting to get burned. Chi-Yu comes in. So does this Chi-Yu get punished? This is the main question I have. U-turn, there's the punish. That was very, very proactive. Oh, onto the Iron Hands. That would have been so good if that wasn't the Chi-Yu, but that's totally okay if you're a Matt fan, because now Chi-Yu gets in prime position to just kind of start disrupting stuff. Intimidate gets recycled in the back, so obviously you can switch into your Gyarados, get a little bit of Intimidate action there. But Azumarill we were talking about earlier, now he just had a little bit of a delayed gratification there. So, you know, now he's kind of coming in and he's like, oh, awesome, that feels great. Now he's still on a great board. He doesn't quite like the Iron Hands as much, but Iron Hands taking a lot, and then obviously it can also get burned by the Arcanine.
Yeah, I mean, the Iron Hands is still at risk, right? It could just get caught with a Play Rough, could get caught with a burn as well, so plenty to do. The Azumarill, obviously, you know, 2 targets that it can hit super effectively right now. Got to be feeling pretty good about that, but still a ways to go in this game, as neither trainer, I feel, really has the upper hand right now. I think the next couple turns should be determining exactly where it's going.
Yeah, so let's, this is actually very interesting. So, Right now I'm looking at Azu. It is a belly drum Azu. That's also very interesting. So first of all, Dark Pulse comes out onto Arcanine, misses the knockout. Snarl coming out from the Arcanine. Obviously that's good. It's kind of funny because it's not really effective in either one. It just does a tiny bit of damage. Wild Charge though coming out into Azu. This knocks out. Okay, I think we just saw the tides of this game maybe changed a little bit. If I'm Matt, I'd be like doing a little fist pump, a little action. I'd be like, awesome. That's exactly what I was looking for. I needed that to kind of win the game. This Arcanine at red, it does have leftovers, so it's restoring a little bit of its HP. But the only thing I want to note is that once this once this Slitherwing no longer has access to the first impression, Chi-Yu has a very, very free in-game. Just clicking Heat Wave, just kind of getting KOs, doing what it has to do.
Yeah, and Matt's just going to be able to switch it out, right? He doesn't at any point have to worry about this. The Arcanine there in that previous turn, I feel like it should have tried to shut down the Iron Hands a little bit more. Needed to land a burn. Needed to make sure that you could take at least one of these wild charges as well, because now you're in a very precarious position with just a couple things remaining here. So a tough one for Scott. Did bring a very interesting 4, but I just can't see him getting out of this situation in a particularly comfortable place, particularly with the Slitherwing. Taking that terrestrialization. Yes, the first impression will do more, but I do not see it threatening a knockout anytime soon. As Chi-Yu just runs away once again. It's going to be another Intimidate coming down, and these two are really going to struggle to play the game.
So I do wonder if there's any way this Gyarados can maybe be sniped. Ideally, it would have to be with something like a close combat. Actually, no, it is Terra Bug, so it have to be first impression onto the Gyarados. Will-O-Wisp missing the Iron Hand. That's not really what you wanted to see. If this crit, it should not have been close combat because you're Terra Bug, so it would have done more damage. Yeah. Also, you would have saved your defenses. So a little tiny misplay there, but these little tiny misplays just add up over time. But obviously, with Iron Hands surviving that, because there was no Flare Blitz, so there was no proactive decision to remove the Iron Hands from play. There was a Will-O-Wisp. Missing the Will-O-Wisp made it so this Wild Charge 100% knocks out. I think it would have gotten anyways, judging by Iron Hands, just it being the Pokemon is being at neutral. Even at -2 from the burn, it would have been fine. But this is over now because, like we said earlier, the Chi-Yu is safely secured inside the back. All Matt has to do is just not switch in Chi-Yu, let your board just kind of naturally faint, and then eventually Chi-Yu will come in, go for a nice little flamethrower, and kind of end this game. Yeah,
at some point this Slitherwing is going to get felled. So a tough position, right? I mean, that's kind of the nature of it. We all know what it can and can't do. So being able to take some of that ability away, it's a little bit telegraphed, a little bit obvious. It will try the U-turn, but I do not see it threatening a knockout here, as Iron Hands will go very, very low, down to about 10%, just 1 point over. And a quick Wild Charge. Yeah, you've already dealt with it. So Chi-Yu is coming back in and should be able to wrap this one up on the following turn. The Taunt, of course, makes sure that it's not able to protect, and Matt can advance quickly onto game number 2.
All right, so let's talk about the GOAT from this game. And from Matt's perspective, it was definitely the Iron Hands. Number one, it dodged the Will-O-Wisp. That was kind of cool. But more importantly, though, it just lived and it did damage. That's all you can ask for from the Iron Hands. You live the attack and just do a bunch of damage back. It did that precisely with the Azu, where it was able to go for a Wild Charge before the Azu could even get off a play rough maybe onto the Iron Hands, and also Wild Charge knocked out the Arcanine, so it got two knockouts, which is huge, and safely securing this endgame here with the Chi-Yu. So Dark Pulse actually comes out. I'm wondering if there's no 100% accurate move. Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. Matt's saying, I don't want to lose this off just some RNG, so I'm just going to go for Dark Pulse. It's guaranteed, it's safe. U-turn comes out. Barely misses.
No first impression, we'll put it that way. Not able to get the knockout there on Chi-Yu. Just too much to do. As Slitherwing now paralyzed is going to get felled in this turn. So Scott throwing in the towel. Matt playing that one very nicely. Some really proactive switches there. And it felt like he was never really in a bad position, just because he kept the Chi-Yu safe every time. So maybe Slitherwing, as much as I enjoy seeing it, we can see why it's a little bit of a tricky one to use.
Something else I got to say, I just have to point this out. That was a 3v4 from turn 1. If you remember that, Matt actually just lost the Flutter Mane turn 1. So literally, it's just that was a 3v4. He also, Matt allocated a lot of resources in that Flutter Mane because it was using your terrestrialization. So you obviously just invest into that, and then you just got O-code for turn 1 after just getting off one Dazzling Gleam, and then Arcanine starts some HP. Fridgeraff it didn't really do anything. But so it's that's very interesting. I wonder if Matt can do anything to make this a 4v4. If Matt committed less into the Flutter Mane and save that resource for something else, I wonder if there's a cleaner path to victory. But Matt ended up winning regardless. So if I was smart money, just based on that game 1, how that exactly nasty win. Obviously, Matt won. But going to game 2, how do you think Scott will adjust inside of this?
I think he just needs to be more careful and not so obvious, right, in his play. The Slitherwing, when it came in, it never felt like it really got a handle in the game. It never got to first impression. It never got to hit, like, super effectively. Needs to be a little bit wiser about it. And I think my big concern is that Iron Hands right now. Just not being able to deal with that. Maybe save the Frigga for later, you know, and try and catch the Iron Hands on the way in. The big issue as well is, like, you know, he spent a lot of time shutting down the Gyarados, like he burned it, right? And it just never really stopped it. It still got to Thunder Wave, it still got to Taunt, so just made a whole lot of sense to the way that Matt played the game. And for Scott's perspective, right, it's like, you know, do you dive towards something like the Amoonguss, you know, something that can redirect and cause problems that way, you know, redirect away maybe something like the Iron Hands. You can take both of the Iron Hands attacks away very, very nicely and allow more room for your Slitherwing and your Azumarill to get involved.
One thing I also want to point out, a very proactive play, what Scott could have done, so the previous game was went into Azumarill whenever there was no Iron Hands on the board, because obviously Azumarill only came out whenever there was an Iron Hands on the board to already keep it in check. So that was kind of like, you know, an iffy decision, and that kind of snowballed later in the game. So going to this, though, we see Matt lead with the Chi-Yu and Flutter Mane, and we see Scott going with the exact same thing with the Arcanine and the Farigiraf.
Yeah, it's going to be the same leads. Obviously, I can see, a slight difference, but yeah, I mean, it's still going to be all about shutting down this this Flutter Mane, I think, and the Flutter Mane, it's like wanting to get a little bit more value out of it. So add Chi-Yu, add the Beads of Ruin, and then you'll be in a great position to be able to try and cause those problems. So we'll see how Matt executes this turn 1. I do think that's going to be really important for him. If he wants to keep up the pressure, similar to what he was obviously exerting as we got towards the end of game number 1. So plenty of work to do here. Farigiraf goes to Protect, and if we see a double target into this Arcanine, things could get dicey here.
Oh, so I'm going to tell you, that was a spice-locked turn, because Matt just led with, like, the big guns turn 1 and just kind of pointed them at the Arcanine turn 1 for that immediate knockout, knowing that the Farigiraf has Protect. And last game, Matt went for the Farigiraf last, turn 1. So Scott kind of was conditioned to Protect because, you know, what happened inside game 1, how that went. But Matt, with the very proactive double tap onto the Arcanine, was very, very good there from a read sense.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, I think, are a little bit tired of playing around the Arcanine. So I've seen a lot more in recent weeks of just people, like, double targeting at turn 1. Right, stop the later Intimidate and just deal with it that way. We do get back into the same situation, though, we were previously, right? Like, yeah, you've got the Bug type, you've got the Fighting type, but the Chi-Yu is just free to leave. The Chi-Yu has absolutely no concern about being able to leave here. And now, you know, yes, the Chi-Yu not having the Beads of Ruin in play is going to be a little bit annoying for the damage output of this Flutter Mane, but it seems Matt has a way to make up for that missing damage change by using his Terastallization, just going Fairy type and just throwing down damage. You also essentially force the Terastallization out of the side of the Slitherwing. Because if Slitherwing doesn't Terastallize here, it is still going to get hurt really, really badly.
That's a very, very good point you make about forcing Terastallization. So, in my opinion, that's actually the key to this format. If you force Terastallizations, that's how you really get momentum, is like once you get your opponent inside a little box and, you know, they have to do a specific play, it's much more predictable. Because I remember at the start of the format, everyone was like, you know, it felt so volatile, but with closed Team Shi, it's obviously much less volatile. So just like you said, Terastallization coming out from the Slitherwing, forced to Terastallize here because it does not want to faint to the Dazzling Gleam from Flutter Mane. So Dazzle comes out, should do over half to this Slitherwing, given it would probably get the knockout if it was a Fighting type. And it should also, as we saw from game 1, do that much to Farigiraf. So Gyarados here is inside of a decent position. Trick Room does go up, which if you're Matt, you don't really like to see unless you maybe have that Amoonguss in the back that could kind of come in, or an Iron Hands or something like that. But I think Trick Room kind of changes the tide of stuff. Even though there's a big damage difference between Scott and Matt's team, Trick Room kind of changes this a little bit, because Psy Shock, a double tap could come out, lots of things.
Yeah, I mean, he does have access to the Iron Hands, though, for late, right? And I feel like that's going to be a really big factor here, is the Iron Hands at full health, getting in safely at some point, or just getting in now, will be able to cause those problems. So Flutter Mane maybe trying to save itself for a time where there's no Trick Room, and it can just Dazzle and Gleam everything down with its Terastallization. But Iron Hands really doesn't feel like it's in a particularly dangerous position at this point. It's just Hyper Voice, trying to wear things down, but let's see. Of course, there is the Throat Spray to help out, but how long is Farigiraf going to have to deal with that?
So, I have to say, I think that Scott is doing everything he can to possibly get back into this game. So look at this board right now. And that was a 2-turn setup. Trick Room came out. That was 1 turn. The second turn is going for U-turn / Hyper Voice. So Scott is prioritizing his board. We saw from last game that Azumarill actually underspeeds the, yeah, that doesn't get knocked out because it's very bulky. So we saw from last game Azumarill actually underspeeds the Iron Hands. So, you know, if I was Scott here, I would be feeling amazing because you have a very, very free turn. You can click Play Rough onto the Iron Hands and Side Shock onto the Gyarados. Knowing Gyarados doesn't really have the best physical defense, that should double knock them out. You still have Trick Room for 2 more turns after this.
Yeah, that's going to be a big thing, but the longer he takes on that and the more time Matt can maybe wear away with Protect, it is going to get dicey because when Trick Room starts to run out, then we're looking at real Flutter Mane hours, right? Being able to just come in and just dazzle and gleam everything. The Azumarill, of course, does have to land the Play Rough as well. I mean, let's not be silly. You and I both know that that is a move that can definitely cause problems. The Play Rough goes on the Gyarados, so he's relying on the Side Shock, actually, over onto the side of the Iron Hands. Let's see if it's going to be enough.
Let's see this.
It's going to be a lot, but I'm a little questioning on this one.
Oh, it does. Okay.
It gets it, yeah. I'll be honest, that's a calculation I don't know.
Now you do. Now I know it too, you know? But, yeah, look at this. This is like... I want to say I love how Scott clawed back into this game. Scott Scott saw a very clear path. It was like, okay, I get up Trick Room, I go for a Hyper Voice, I get this special attack boost, and then I combine that with Azumarill, and this board Matt has nothing for, unless Amoonguss was in the back, but Amoonguss was not inside the back. So this was a very, very strong board from Scott here, and I'm pretty sure, like, you know, assuming every move connects, like, this should be inside Scott's favor. I'd say that.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing here as well is I think that's Scott understanding the item choice as well over on the Iron Hands. It's Assault Vest, right? So you need to hit it relying on its defense. Well, Psyshock going off the defense there actually makes the difference, so that does make a lot more sense. I mean, either of them are going to be physical, but just knowing the calculations, this is a big Aqua Jet for Azumarill, but it doesn't get the knockout on the Chi-Yu. Will Frigoraph be able to tidy it up? Wow. Yes, it will.
Wow. Okay, did you see the Hyper Voice damage? Like, because it's just funny, because, you know, Flutter Mane is, you know, obviously it's a Ghost type, so it shouldn't be hitting with, like, hit by that in the first place, but, you know, it terrestrialized the Fairy. I just never thought I would see a calc like that, where it just, like, you know, a Hyper Voice from a crazy specially defensive Flutter Mane, because, you know, its base 135 just did, like, 70% of its health, because, you know, it was at +1. So I just thought that was kind of cool, you know, putting some spotlight on the draft there.
This is kind of the sticky situation for Matt, right? It's like his Flutter Mane gave up the Ghost type early on, and is now eligible to get hit by Hyper Voice. So I've said this for a few events now, you know, traveling around. Sometimes the change of type feels really good in the moment, but a little while later will come back and absolutely ruin you.
Yeah, that's the thing is, like, with this mechanic, like, because, you know, with Dynamax or Z moves, it's kind of like a 1-turn thing. Dynamax 3-turn thing, obviously.
Well, here's the big thing, though.
Double Protect?
He's just got out of Trick Room. So now he just needs Dazzling Gleams to do it, but the Azumarill has Aqua Jet. So
yeah, yeah. Oh, man. You know, it's kind of funny because if that Flutter Mane was actually trained much bulkier, you know, if it was you know, much bulkier Flutter Mane, that could have gone complete 180. That could have been like it just, you know, took less damage from the Hyper Voice, and the Aqua Jet maybe barely left on 1 HP, and then it just gets Dazzling Gleam. It's like, all right, great game, my friend, you know, and that's over. But that's not what we saw. So now it's 1-1 right now. So we're going to game 3. I will say, I really liked Azu there. I'm surprised neither players are bringing Amoonguss, honestly. That's my biggest shocking factor. Given there is no safety goggles on the team of Scott, and for Matthew, there is also no safety goggles. So, or actually, there is one safety goggles on Scizor, but Scizor is not being brought here. So, I wonder if the Amoonguss Game 3 switch-up will be the direction any of them try to go.
It feels like a strange Pokemon to leave behind, right? Like, it's so good, especially as the Trick Room player, right? You can just start putting stuff to sleep. But then what do you give up for that? I mean, the Arcanine really didn't have the impact that I think he wanted in either game. It got knocked out turn 1 in the last game, and again, it seems to be a trend. If you lose the first Pokemon, you win the game here. Yeah. So I think both trainers, just no protects, just throw attacks and see what happens.
Yeah, because there's kind of two philosophies for that. It's like you can either like, you know, kind of just like take like the middle ground where it's just you're like, okay, you know what, I'm just gonna go for no protect. I'm just gonna, you know, just like full send it and just like kind of try to like, you know, make sure that I'm getting a longer stick inside this transaction here. But then there's the other philosophy where it's like, you know what, I know exactly what you're clicking, and you just kind of full-on read them. It's like two different ways to kind of play the game. It really depends on which player feels more comfortable, their play style, all those little knickknacks and whatnot. But really though, like I said earlier, I do think Amoongus could be a really cool adjustment going to Game 3. In addition though, maybe from Matt, what we could see, I feel like letting your Iron Hands.
It took too much damage on the way in.
Yeah.
I think that's actually the difference, right? It took like a solid chunk on the way in, and I know it's a good switch into the bug type, but it probably makes a difference.
Also, if Terra Grass maybe could have came out from the Iron Hands, obviously you don't want to be weak to the Slither Wing. But anyways, though, we're just going to get right into this. So Slithering as a lead, and the Arcanine, still as a lead right here. Matt going back to the Game 1 lead of Gyarados plus Fluttermane. So getting this Intimidate off onto the Arcanine. Fluttermane obviously entirely walls the Slitherwing because we know it only has access to bug and fighting type attacks, both which Fluttermane either resists or is immune to. So I would say Fluttermane is in prime condition right here, and also getting Intimidate onto the Arcanine is very, very clutch from the Gyarados perspective. But the only thing I would be worried about is maybe just getting overwhelmed because obviously Fluttermane's physical defense is so low. So there's a double tap on the Fluttermane that could be kind of tricky. But so we actually see the Iron Hands come out from Matt, switching out of the Gyarados so you can recycle that into the back. You want to protect. Very, very safe because now you get access to Fake Out and you can attack, and you just have much more leeway with this. I really, really like that turn 1.
Yeah, and you get to bait out the Protect as well, see where the Terrasilization's going, get rid of that first impression turn. And a Snarl here, not going to be super impactful, just being able to do a little bit of extra damage onto this Iron Hands. By a little bit, I mean 5. That is not going to be the difference maker. Lowering a completely pointless stat as well that it really doesn't rely on. So things are going a little bit different. No turn 1 knockout, so I now have no idea who's going to win the game.
So, okay, something that's very, very notable. You saw how Scott protected Slitherwing, right?
Yeah.
So it cannot protect this. I mean, obviously the 1 and 3rd maybe technically could roll to protect, but in general, you cannot double protect. So I feel like a very, very free play from Matt's perspective is picking up the Arcanine, ensuring that slot cannot do anything, and then just going for a Moonblast. You could either Terrasilize, go for a Moonblast if you really wanted to double down that damage, but a target onto this Slitherwing feels absolutely free from Matt's perspective, knowing Slitherwing cannot protect this turn.
Yeah, I mean, also, you potentially force something to come in, which is going to be even harder to use as well. Getting something like the Azumarill at half health on the way in would be massive. Let's see, it is going to be Farigiraf, so making sure that Shadow Ball is covered, but this is going to be a lot of damage coming through from a Terrasilize Moonblast.
Yes, so this is partially why Fluttermane is such a good Pokemon right now, is because obviously, with the Ruination Pokemon that's a Dark type, and it's the only consistent Fairy type to the decks right now. There's Sylveon that's there, but it's very slow. It's kind of inconsistent. Obviously, Pixelate got nerfed a while ago. But anyways, though, like we said, Fairy is such a good typing right now. So just going for this Terra Fairy Moonblast into this Farigiraf, I estimate at least 90 damage. Like 90% of its HP just gone instantly with this one transaction. So Moonblast coming out. Also, notably, the double Intimidate did come out onto... Okay, yeah, it gets the Oko. That's even more damage. So getting... yeah, crazy damage. That works. But anyways, though, so Gyarados going for the Will-O-Wisp onto the... Or sorry, Arcanine going for the Will-O-Wisp onto the Gyarados. Notably, though, the Arcanine is at -2 attacks, so it doesn't really threaten this Fluttermane with a lot of offensive output, but it can totally start snarling you down to reduce the damage.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing there for Matt as well is he gets the Iron Hands safe of the Will-O-Wisp, which I think is really important. That was quite a clear play. But this Azumarill's got a whole lot of work to do right now, as it is going to be trying to deal with this Fluttermane. Not saying that it's bad at doing that. Does, of course, have priority, but... there's still maybe, in my opinion, a little bit too much work to do. And at some point, you do have to pay the Piper, and that Piper is called Iron Hands, and it's going to come in and wild charge you again. Particularly if you don't have the Trick Room, which you do not now, because we see the Farigiraf just get knocked out. So, yeah.
That was crazy, just because the only switching that could have came in was the Amoongus. And we knew that Amoongus could not switch in because, okay, obviously Amoongus could have switched in, but given by how games 1 and 2 went, Amoongus not being brought here, so Matt felt very safe to get up that Moonblast. So I love this. I love that Matt targeted the Azumarill there because a rookie mistake would have been going for a passive play to be like, oh, well, I can Intimidate Cycle, get the Gyarados back in, but that Azumarill wanted to click Belly Drum. It totally was. It was like, all right, well, I got to fish for a choke, get this Belly Drum real quick, go for the Aqua Jet, and get a little sweep going.
Yeah, I mean, I think, not letting a Zoom Reel belly drum is huge, right? Like, I always used to feel that way with Snorlax back in the day. When people are like, I'm just going to belly drum Snorlax. I'm like, or we could just do over 50% of your health. You know, and even if they look berry, you're just like, okay, well, you're at 25%, so have fun, right? Like, see what you can do. That said, I mean, this is a really commanding position for Matt. The bug type just isn't going to be able, even the bug terror isn't going to help out that much. This, you know, first impression could do a lot. There's definitely a couple real easy ways to get around that. One of them is protect, and the other one is, I mean, it's like you could just protect and then maybe like Thunder Wave it or something for fun. This Gyarados obviously not doing the hottest sense attack start, so why not, right? Like, just start causing problems, and that's why I really like Gyarados in the current format. Is like, yes, it can drop big waterfalls, but at the same time, like, it can provide way more with just Thunder Wave and Taunt.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're Matt, like, you just kind of go into like you know, just like long-term mode. Like, if you want the most out of your like investment here, you just gotta Thunder Wave. Eventually, you know, something's gonna get parried, and like once you get Thunder Wave on both those, Waterfall actually coming out into Arcanine, not doing that much because, you know, it was burned obviously. So that's very interesting to see. But, you know, obviously Flutter Mane did protect that previous turn. And if the trend continues where our Flutter Mane just clicks Moonblast into the right slot, that might just get another one-hit knockout, just like we saw in all those other turns. So, or potentially Scott could read this and then maybe crit a Flare Blitz onto the Flutter Mane, OHKO it, you know, something like that could happen. But we'll have to see exactly how this turn plays out. So, I really like this for Matt. This covers for the Slitherwing protecting, because now next turn you set up Fake Out, so you can fake out the Slitherwing and go for another Moonblast. Guaranteed you get this off, and there's no counterplay to this.
Yeah, you're just relying on the Arcanine right now to land that critical hit, I think, or find a way to really pressure down onto this Flutter Mane. It's going to bring it just below half, so no critical hit means no dice, no joy for the Arcanine right now.
So I have a question for you, Dawes. Which one would you go for Fake Out here? Would you Fake Out the Arcanine, or would you Fake Out the Slitherwing?
I think I would Fake Out the Arcanine, just because I don't want to get Will-O-Wisp.
That's good. I also, you know, there's also a very realistic chance that this Flutter Mane just OHKO Slitherwing with his Moonblast. Honestly, based on the entire team just getting OHKO'd like by that.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see that, you know. If it gets the one-hit knockout, then, you know, Fake Out 100% safe play, because even if the Slitherwing gets a double protect, then you can just next turn light it up with the Moonblast. So I completely agree with that. That's a great assessment.
You don't want to get Flare Blitzed again either. Like, just shut it down for the turn.
Yeah.
Like, it's really not that big a deal, and it's like then you can just start wailing on it with Moonblasts, right? Or just Shadow Balls, whatever you want. Like, just going crazy. Slitherwing will be.
Oh, that is tanky.
Yeah, Slitherwing's actually quite a bulky lad. Like, I do feel like you're going to need 2 to get it. But you know, Flutter Mane will go down. The thing is, it's like your Arcanine didn't get to burn your Iron Hands. So you're then forcing it to try and Will-O-Wisp at this turn, and you can still bring back in fun things like Gyarados or Chi-Yu, which it's definitely going to struggle to deal with.
So, like, you know, if I was Matt, my ideal in-game board here, I mean, you are Scarf on Chi-Yu, so you could technically totally just go into it and just risk it and just, you know, like, why not? But, you know, if I was Matt, I would probably be going to Gyarados and just clicking Thunder Wave, so then I get in Chi-Yu. And then it's like, once you get that board, they're both paralyzed, clicking Heat Wave, the odds are so in your favor at that point. It's overwhelming.
He's definitely missed a step right now. Like, for me, I always love taking that extra step. Like, you have his board locked, right? He's onto his back too. It does make sense to be able to just say, you know what, like, I'm just going to paralyze you and really cause problems, maybe even help the protects fail. Choose Heat Wave. We'll go into that protect though. Obviously, it's not going to be super effective into the Arcanine, but hey, any little bits of damage are going to start adding up, especially when it's followed up. The big thing here, yeah, no Will-O-Wisp. So this Iron Hands could just kind of tidy things up a little bit here, because I think this is going to be a nice one. Oh, he's doubled into the Slitherwing though, so maybe banking on the Heat Wave this.
Yeah, so probably that makes sense actually. So, you know, I see it's kind of funny because like. I see that Scott is still really trying right now. Like, Scott still really wants to win. Scott's not giving this one up easily. He's been playing very good these past few turns. He's going to need a little bit more than just good play to get out of this. You know, like that, he can go a little bit of luck. And, you know, even if this Will-O-Wisp connects, it's pretty much over. Like, just given how this has gone, it's 3v1. You still have your Chi. You can always switch out, get a Dark Pulse in the late game, re-intimidate, and it's, you know.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, right, like, you're going to get caught at some point by the Chi-Yu. It is going to be able to land a Heat Wave on your Pokemon, and you are going to get knocked out. Iron Hands now pivoting over to the Wild Charge. Not enough, obviously, with that burn, but what do you do next turn? Well, at some point, your Arcanine is just going to get knocked out. So, still a little ways to go, but Scott, you know, is done for this one.
Yeah, I'm like pretty sure that like the exact string here is, yep, switch into Gyarados and then go ahead and click Wild Charge again. This just covers for absolutely everything. You want to reset your choice scarf, so it's kind of funny that even though this is so far ahead inside of Matt's perspective, there's still technically optimal plays you can go for. Did I see that right? Did you just see that?
Yeah, I don't think it's that big a deal. I think he just wants like to turbo.
The free switch in and just
turbo the
pulse.
switch, yeah.
It'd be kind of if this doesn't knock out. Okay, like I get that. You're reading the protect, I guess. Like, just, like this was called a flex, I guess, a tactical flex. You know, with like the volt switch, 4x super effective, doing so much damage to Gyarados. But the important part, critically hitting, you know, just cause like. But the important part is you get a free switch into your Chi-Yu now. The Arcanine presumably cannot get a protect. Actually, I really kind of like this board. Now that I've soaked this in, I totally get this, because now you got to click Dark Pulse, and then if there's a double protect that comes out, Leftovers restores a little bit, then you have Fake Out next turn. So it's just 100% guaranteed in the bag now. I actually kind of like this position because you knock it out.
And he dropped the Snarl drop as well from earlier. So like, this is ultimate insurance play, but Matt being made to go through all the steps here.
Awesome. Okay, so I think this should be about done now. Yeah, Dark Pulse should just get it. You know, if you really want to keep going down this line, switch out into the Iron Hands this next turn from the Gyarados, and then click Dark Pulse if you wanted to, you know, get the 100% play, like the 100% like a finished route. But you know, it's locked up. So great games though. So I have a question: have we gotten game 3s in every single one of these?
No, not our first one. That was a 2-0.
Right, that was a 2-0. That was a hyper offense game.
Yeah, but no, it's been good so far. I mean, picking up some 3-game sets, really nice for you know, showing the depth of these teams and the way that players are able to adapt over the course of the set. So really positive for what we've got coming up over the course of the rest of the day.
Yeah, I'm actually I'm kind of excited. Like these teams are getting more and more interesting. You'd think it's like as you get more through like the tournament, they'd be more like balanced, right? You'd see more just standard stuff. But like Slitherwing at 2-0 was kind of cool. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, no,
you know, fortunately 2-1, but he's still in it.
Yeah, cool teams coming through from a number of our trainers here. But that means it's time for us to grab a little bite to eat for lunch. No break. We're just gonna wait for the next round and go and consume some food. So we'll be back very shortly here in Maitland.